Hey, it's AP, and today we're building a house that looks like a bed. Check it out. No. Hey, it's AP, and today we're building a bed that looks like a house. Check it out. Well, our daughter just graduated from toddler bed to big girl bed, and we decided to do something very special for her by making one. And by we, I mean me. If you watch the channel, you know that my wife and I are big fans of the Montessori style of education and also the Montessori design aesthetic as well, which is all about the kind of bare wood, clean lines, things like that. And I have some really great episodes on how to make a Montessori open-faced bookcase as well as house-shaped shelves. I'll leave links to those in the description below so you can learn how to make those as well. But today's episode is about how to make a house-shaped bed. This is a twin-size bed. I based the plans off of some other designs I found online. I will leave links to those references below as well so you can follow along. I'm not making plans for these because there are so many other resources out there that you can adapt for your own purposes. This is a twin-sized bed, and it is made completely out of 2x4s, pocket holes, screws, and glue, and a lot of sandpaper, because 2x4s are not the prettiest of lumber to work with. So you will be doing a lot of sanding. All right, so let's rewind to about 2 weeks ago, or years ago in internet time, and I'll show you how I put it all together. All right, first things first. I needed to square off the 2x4s. 2x4s have a rounded edge, so cutting roughly 1/8 of an inch off each side will get the sides nice and square. Then I sanded them all down with 60 grit paper and finished with 120. The 60 grit is really great for getting those stamps off the wood. Well, now that the wood has been squared on each edge and then sanded with a 60 grit and a 120 grit, I'm ready to start cutting the pieces to assemble the bed. So I'm going to first start working on the house-shaped portion of the bed. And for that, I'm just going to chop these sticks down to about 58 inches. Yeah, 58 inches. And that'll be kind of like that'll be the side of the house. And then we'll do the tops. And for this, I'm just going to have a flat bottom because that's what's going to sit on the floor, and then a 45-degree angle, which the gable of the house will sit on. So let's chop these things up. Pro tip: to make sure your cuts are equal length, you can use a stop block, or if your lumber is thin enough, you can stack 2 or 3 pieces on top of each other and then cut once. This saves a lot of time too. Yeah, I still haven't figured out the math to do the gable, so I just eyeballed it. If you paid attention in math class and can tell me how to do this, leave me the formula in the comments below. Thank you. All right, the main structure of the bed is complete, and the last thing I'm going to do is build a little chimney feature to go on top. I just need to figure out the dimensions for that, and then I can sand and stain all this wood. And another eyeball job here using scraps. Also, in hindsight, I could have just glued this all together and saved myself all the eyesores of a bunch of pocket holes. I'll remember that for next time. Well, now that's all put together, I can see what it looks like, and I think it looks fantastic. So now I have to take it all apart so I can bring it upstairs. But before we bring it upstairs, I'm going to do some sanding, staining, filling in some imperfections with wood putty, and then, I have to also make the cleats for the bed slats, which is pretty simple. It's going to be some scrap wood, so it's not going to be seen. That doesn't have to be perfect. And I can do that with everything taken apart. So let's disassemble this bad boy and start prepping it for its thrilling conclusion, or its final delivery, or its final destination, which is my... I got nothing. Okay. Before staining, I just ran some 120 grit sandpaper over all the wood. And I'm just using a natural color stain to make the wood have a richer tone. Now that everything's prepped and stained, I'm ready to put on the polyurethane. The stuff I use and have used in the past is this triple thick polyurethane. It's water-based. It's from Varathane. You can get it at the Home Depot. I'm sure you can get it online as well. I believe Varathane is like a Home Depot brand of stains and stuff. I could be totally wrong about that. This is the only polyurethane I've ever used on any of my projects, and I typically get pretty great results, so I figured why stop now. What's great about this is that it's thick, it's self-leveling, and you really only need one coat to get your best results. You put it on, you let it dry for 7 days or fully cure for 7 days, and you're good to go. And it's actually, you can work with it to the touch within 2 hours, and you can use limited, moderate use within 48 hours. But your full cure is 7 days. There you go. All right, so also stir, do not shake. Stir, do not shake, because you don't want the bubbles in there and stuff. And you also want a synthetic brush to put this stuff on. So, okay, let's do that. Now before the poly gets too dry, I like to go back with the brush to get any thick areas or drips to help keep everything nice and smooth. After a few days of curing, I went back and did a light sanding with 1500 grit sandpaper to get a really nice glass smooth finish. All right, now that this is all sanded down, we can move it on upstairs and put it together. This is just 1x3 strapping cut to fit. I countersunk some holes and attached to the bed rail with 1-inch wood screws. So one thing I didn't film, because I didn't think it was too important, but now I do realize it is important, was that my rails were about 2 inches too long for the mattress. I didn't want too much padding on the side, so I decided to cut them down to fit the mattress. What that did though was it screwed up my pocket holes. And so now the ends of my pocket hole is too wide to hold on to the meat of the wood. And in my testing of the bed, I broke the bed. As you can see here, the pocket holes grooves have kind of just pulled out of the rail wood. That's really annoying. So, but I did have the foresight, and I ended up picking some bed rail brackets. And so now I'm going to remove the slats and install the bed rail brackets, which will now hold this in place. And hopefully I can do that using the space in between the pocket holes versus having to cut brand new bed rails. So fingers crossed that that holds my 220-pound body, because if it does that, then it's going to hold my child just fine. All right, let's fix this up because she's going to be home in a couple hours. Okay. Now to really add some security to this, I put a center rail in using a piece of 1x4 pine, and then I put a leg in the center. And there we have it, our beautiful house-shaped bed. And I tell you what, our daughter loves it. We had a few concerns that she may not take to the twin-size bed after being in the toddler bed for so long, but as soon as she came home and saw it, she just fell in love with it. And we haven't had any issues with her sleeping in it. If I were to do this again, which I'm going to have to do in a couple of years anyway, because we have another one who will be requiring one, these are some of the things I would do differently. First, I would look at something different than pocket holes. The pocket holes are great, they hold really well, but you can see them on the insides here. And while I could fill them in, sand them down, stain them, whatever, I want to make this so it's somewhat modular as well. So coming up with a system that will make this easy to put together and take apart, but also something where you're not going to see too much of the mechanics, like the pocket holes. Also, gluing and screwing wood is a pain. As you saw, there's, once you kind of glue things together and then you start applying pressure with the screws, there is a little shifting that occurs because, the friction goes away once you put the glue in. It acts kind of as like a lubricant, so things can shift a little bit. And if you look closely, you can see where some shifting occurred, and I had to use a lot of sanding and high grits to really knock down the lippage that was happening there. In the past, I've had some success with gluing first and clamping, letting it dry for a couple hours and then coming back in with screws just to give it that extra stability. I am going to pick up some angle clamps, which I think will help me on future projects like this where I have a lot of right angles. I mean, I could also try it without glue and just use the pocket hole screws. Pocket hole screws are very sturdy and they hold things together nicely without glue. I was just kind of erring on the side of caution here. So we'll see. I have to do a lot of experiments on the best way to glue and screw things together without any lippage. If you have some suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Finally, one thing that I didn't do, which I should have, is I ended my sanding at 120 grit. And because this is a 2x4, and again, not the best of lumber available for our needs, I should have stepped it up to maybe 220 or 320 grit as well to get the smoothest finish possible before staining. I realized this error after I stained, and because I was on a time crunch, I didn't want to sand everything down, sand the stain off, and then start all over again. So it's not awful, but you can feel some roughness in some areas for sure. But again, not a deal breaker. If I was making this for a client, yes, it would be a deal breaker, and I would have to resand it and all that stuff. So anyway, I hope you learned something new today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you're working on a similar project, let me know in the comments below. If you have questions when you're tackling a project like this, leave me a question in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Let's get through this together. We're a community, right? Let's help each other out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the cool stuff that we're working on here. It's not just furniture. I'm doing model making, prop making, cosplay, home improvement, and of course, furniture building. And until next time, stop planning and start making something. Thanks for watching.